In 1971, this simple message comprised of the 10 letters of the top row of a computer keyboard was sent from one computer to another, marking what is considered by most to be the first email ever sent in history. Now, more than 50 years later, an estimated 376 billion emails are sent every single day. But how is email actually sent? Why is it almost impossible to intercept an email being sent? And why, after all these years, is email still not as secure as we think it is? Today, I'm going to explain email in a way you've never heard before. And by the end, if I do my job well, you might even understand the basics of encryption and the role it plays in email communication. This video is sponsored by DeleteMe, the best way to remove your personal information online. To make this easier to understand, let's imagine that this letter I wrote is an email. And just like how you write a letter, you seal it in an envelope, write the return address and the destination address and drop it in the mailbox, an email goes through a similar process, but digitally. When you click send on an email, it doesn't just magically teleport to your friend's inbox. It's more like this envelope. First, your email app hands off your message to a post office, which in this case is called an SMTP server, which stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. Then that email gets routed through a bunch of digital post offices or mail servers, sometimes bouncing across multiple countries before finally landing in your friend's inbox. But here's the problem. If you sent this letter as a postcard instead of sealing it in an envelope, anyone along the delivery route, mail sorters, delivery drivers, or even someone snooping in your mailbox could read what's written on it. And what's crazy is that that's how email worked in the early days prior to the turn of the century. All email messages, for the most part, were unencrypted and available for anyone to read. So to fix that, we added something called TLS, or Transport Layer Security, which was officially standardized in 1999. It's basically like putting your message into a locked bag during transport. Only the sending server and the receiving server negotiate a shared key to lock and unlock this bag for that specific trip. None of the routers, internet service providers, or internet hops in between can open it. It's secure while it's moving.
So TLS basically is going to go ahead and encrypt your connection, but once the data is received to the receiving mail server, it's not encrypted.
That's Brandon, a security researcher at Tuda, and he actually just highlighted a really important distinction here. Once your email arrives at the destination, say Gmail or Yahoo server, it's opened up and read, not necessarily by a person, but by the server itself, which means your message is only private while it's in transit.
When it's over the wire, you have that guarantee of encryption, you have that encrypted tunnel, but there is no guarantee of secure encryption once it's at rest again at the receiving server.
If you're the average user who has a Gmail, Outlook, or Yahoo email account, this is where you are right now. These companies have the keys to the locked envelope and have the ability to scan the message. They used to do this in order to show you personalized ads, but Google stopped doing that back in 2017. Now, they mostly scan to detect spam and malware, but governments can also make legal requests to see the email contents that they store on their servers.
Even if you're sending Gmail to Gmail, you're not going to have that end-to-end encryption guarantee.
Think of it like this. You sent your letter in a sealed envelope, but when it arrived, the post office opened it and put it in a see-through glass case in your friend's living room. Your message is delivered, but not exactly private. I don't know about you, but I'm not very comfortable with this setup, mostly because not everybody I send messages to is a friend, and the sensitive nature of some emails is not something I want just floating around on any email server. There's an interesting solution to this, but before I explain it, you should also know that there's a lot of your personal information already floating around the internet, including your personal email address, home address, cell phone number, employment info, and so much more. It's one of the reasons you're getting so many spam messages and junk mail right now. Now, there are hundreds of websites that literally scrape your data to sell to anybody who's willing to buy it. And the only way to stop it is to go in and make removal requests. I've done this before, and it's extremely time consuming, which is why I've been using DeleteMe for years now to help me erase my personal information online. They make removal requests on my behalf, follow up to make sure they've been honored, and then give me a periodic report to let me know what's been happening. This is a service I use for me, my wife, my parents, and I recommend it for you as well. Get 20% off when you visit joindeleteme.com/allthingssecured. So what if you want to secure an email message in such a way that it's not only safe while it's traveling between servers, but it also can only be read by the person sending the email and the person receiving the email, not the email providers? So let's imagine a new way of writing this email message to my friend. Instead of just writing the message and putting it into that locked envelope, I'm going to create a secret code to turn the message into unintelligible gibberish. Only me and the recipient will know the key to decipher this coded message. So at this point, it doesn't matter if somebody were to somehow steal the message, hack the email servers, or otherwise get a hold of this locked envelope, because it's just a bunch of encrypted gibberish inside to anybody who doesn't have the key code. This, simply put, is end-to-end encryption for email.
End-to-end encryption first encrypts the actual data, the content of that email on your client before it is even sent out.
Before you even put the message in the TLS locked envelope for delivery, your device encodes the message with a secret key. It's encrypted during the journey, like all email is nowadays, but even when it arrives to be unlocked by Google, Microsoft, or Yahoo, it stays encrypted because they can't read this encoded message. Only your recipient can decode it with the key that you share. This kind of end-to-end encryption isn't natively available in Gmail, Outlook, or even in Yahoo. In order to get this additional privacy, you'd need to implement something like Pretty Good Privacy, or PGP for short. PGP uses a clever but mathematically complex system known as asymmetric cryptography to secure an email message. In this system, you use a public key to lock a message that can then only be unlocked with a private key. In other words, it's like giving out lockboxes that anyone can use to send you a message, but only you have the key to open them. It's a great system, but here's the catch.
I would never expect my grandma to learn how to use PGP. I don't think it's a feasible expectation for a fair amount of the public.
Brandon's exactly right. While the technology is powerful, its usability is one of the biggest barriers to widespread adoption. Encryption is only effective if people actually use it, but for decades, tools like PGP have just been too complicated. And that's why a lot of people, including myself, look to alternatives like ProtonMail or Tuda for an easier plug-and-play solution. There are still some limitations, but they allow us to build end-to-end encryption for our email communication that just isn't available with major email providers like Google or Outlook. Okay, so we've explored how email is sent and how these messages and even how cloud storage is often encrypted. But even with all of this fancy encryption, there is a looming threat on the horizon that you may have heard about: quantum computing.
Basically, at this moment, there isn't a quantum computer that is strong enough to attack the current classic encryption protocols that we're using. But there is a cryptological threat here, is that in the event that a quantum computer has the resources to go ahead and run what is called Shor's algorithm, it will be able to break the majority of our public key cryptography.
Continuing with our mail analogy, imagine a data breach where a bunch of these locked envelopes or even encoded letters were stolen. Now, for the time being, this thief wouldn't be able to unlock this envelope or decode this message, but he wouldn't have to. Instead, he would just sit on the stolen envelopes knowing that one day new tools might let him open every single one.
Harvest now, decrypt later.
This is only something that state actors have the resources to do, but it's a scary thought nonetheless. And it's the reason why privacy-forward companies are already developing post-quantum encryption, new math that isn't vulnerable to quantum computers. Sadly, there's not too much that you and I can do about this right now, but when you start hearing the term post-quantum encryption being used more and more, now you'll understand why. The truth is that email wasn't built with privacy in mind, but with the right tools and habits, you can reduce your risk.
Your email address is really it's the hub of your digital life. That needs to be kind of protected at all costs.
Here's what you can do today. Use a privacy-focused email provider like Proton or Tuda. I have a whole video comparing the differences between these and other good encrypted email services that I recommend you watch next. Lock your account with a hardware 2FA key like a YubiKey. This is true whether you use an encrypted email service or even Gmail or Outlook. Again, if you're not sure which key is right for you, I have a video explaining each key and how to choose. Use a password manager with unique, strong passwords. And when you're sending sensitive data, make sure you're only doing so with end-to-end encryption. Email isn't going away, but your blind trust in its privacy should. Understand it, encrypt it, and own your digital identity.